Welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio with me this evening is a phenomenal brother that I've had the actual pleasure of knowing for a number of years. He is my brother in Christ. We attend the same church. We actually literally grew up a few blocks away from each other. Of course, it took decades for us to actually be aware that actually took place, and with us living in completely different states now. But nevertheless, this is a phenomenal brother that has been a pleasure to know. He's a husband, he's a father, but his most important title is he's a man of God, and he's taken time out of his very busy schedule to hang out with us this evening to share a little bit of his story, a little bit of his journey with the hopes of inspiring and encouraging and uplifting, particularly as we deal with the facing of our adversities and challenges in life. So it is my privilege and honor, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce to you our special guest this evening, Mr. Keith Squalls. Keith, thank you so much for being on the show.
How you doing there, Joseph? Man, thank you for inviting me, man. This is an
Absolutely.
opportunity I've been looking forward to. So hopefully I can do my best.
Oh man, I'm not even worried about it. I'm sure what you have to share with us is going to be a blessing, and I'm excited to learn more about that. But before we jump into our segments for this evening, I do want to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you do. Kind of give our audience a taste of who is Keith Squalls.
Yep. Okay. Well, thanks a lot, man. Like Joseph said, my name is Keith Squalls. I hail from Chicago, Illinois. That's where Joseph and I grew up. I'm a little bit older than him, but like he said, we grew up blocks away from each other. Not many blocks, but we didn't know each other growing up. We might have seen each other in passing, hanging out at Brainerd Park and everything, but that's where we grew up and come to know each other about what 3 or 4 years ago. Found out we were, from the same place. Now we both live in Dallas, Texas, and found out we were from the same place and everything, and grew up blocks from each other. But we live in Dallas right now, and you know, uh, got a lovely wife and 3 kids and a grandson. And what I do professionally, I'm a life insurance and annuity agent. So I work with people, basically helping them to get their finances together. I do retirement planning, college planning, debt elimination. I'm starting to do some business consulting, and so that's what I do professionally, man. I've been doing that for the past 17 years, and I've been enjoying it, man. It's just something that I love to do, and I'll probably continue to do for a much even longer time, as long as God allows me on this earth to do it. I'll always be talking about, money and finances and how people can improve themselves in that area.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And to our listening audience, I'm sure you don't know, but Keith has been blessing our marriage ministry at our church, sharing with us again some of these skills that he knows help kind of getting us our minds set on estate planning and things of that nature. So it's been enjoyable having him out and kind of schooling us on those things as well. Obviously, one of many important topics that we need to be aware of when it comes to financial management and things of that nature. So this brother knows his stuff, and as he said, he's been in the game a while, and he's got a lot of knowledge base to share with others. So when we'll get an opportunity to tap into that later, but right now we're going to learn a little bit more about his story, a little bit more about his journey. So with that said, Keith, every time I bring somebody on the show, one of the things that I always like to do is take a few moments to reflect on where a person's story actually begins, because I really believe that a lot of things that go on earlier on in life, as far back as childhood, experiences that we have, people that we meet, there's oftentimes a connection between those moments and what we ultimately find ourselves doing later in life. I mean, you just shared right now how passionate and how much you enjoy the work that you do. And while it may not always make sense earlier on in life why certain things happen and certain connections are made, when you really sit back and reflect on it, you might find out that, some of this stuff kind of interconnects, and there's a reason why I have the passion for what I'm doing. It's a reason why I'm walking in the purpose that God has for me to do. And so with that said, if you would, share with us, what was it like for you growing up? Fond memories that you have about growing up, as well as if there's any challenges that come to mind, you can share those as well. Kind of give us the foundational basis of where your story begins.
All right, man. Awesome, man. Man, let's see. From as I don't know what age I was, but I remember, growing up in Chicago on the west side of Chicago, in the projects. And I don't know if you know what the projects are, but Anybody that ever grew up during that time, I was born, back in 1965, and you know, a lot of us, grew up or was raised in the projects. These high rises
Hmm.
with about what 13, 14, 15 floors. And I just remember, you know, uh, how close knit everybody was, particularly on our particular floor. I think we were on the, if I remember correctly, like the third floor or something like that. But, I remember there was a family to our left of us that, was like, growing up, just how you could just kind of walk into people's houses, unannounced, just because you're that close. And I remember that family on the left. I don't remember their names, but I remember a couple of the kids I played with. But then there was another couple of families down, down the on the floor down to the right of us. But I just remember, running around on that floor, man, just having a good time, riding my little tricycle, playing in the projects on that floor, and then even you know down in the playground, on the main playground down on the ground when you had to go down there with your parents or your older siblings for them to watch over you, while you played. But I'm the youngest of, let's see, my mom and dad each married twice. They had a couple of kids in their first marriage. Growing up in the household, there was five of us, and I had two other brothers, and an older brother and a sister, and then my dad had a son that would come and visit us, quite often. So he was like family too. So there was actually about six of us, and I'm the youngest of all. And I just remember, playing a lot with my two brothers that were just two, right above me. We were the three that were born by my mom and dad, that came together after their each of their marriages. So I remember living there, and I think we moved when I was 4 or 5, and then we moved to Brandon Park area where you and I grew up. And I just remember, man, living in a house. It was just something new, moving to a house. And man, we were so excited. I just remember that as a kid when we finally got a chance to move in, how my parents kind of walked us all through the house, and there was only 3 bedrooms, and there's six of us, so you can imagine,
Hmm.
there was more than one in one room. But hey, that's how we grew up, and it was fun, man. All the boys were in one room. My sister had her own room because she was the only girl, and then my mom and dad had their room, obviously. One bathroom. That's how I grew up. And I didn't think there was nothing wrong with having one bathroom until we made friends to the family across the street, and we learned that they had not only 2 bathrooms, but they had remodeled and done their upstairs. And
Ooh.
so we didn't do ours. We didn't remodel our upstairs. They also remodeled and had their basement done.
Hmm.
So we had a basement and an upstairs, but they were unfinished. So all we had was the main floor. So like I said, I thought one bathroom was okay because that's what I grew up with in the projects. But when I learned they had 2 bathrooms, I was like, man, how cool is that to have 2 bathrooms? But anyway, just like in the projects, we became a close knit of families, on 93rd and Ada Street, 9312 South Ada. The family on the left, they had young kids, and the family across the street had young kids. Those were our main two playing families, that we played with, because some of the other families were kids were a little bit older, but we didn't play with them much. But I just remember, man, just growing up, being very active, playing sports in the streets, touch football,
Hmm.
playing softball in the streets, going to the park, playing strikeout, drawing a square on the wall,
Yeah.
and playing with a rubber ball and playing that, playing basketball, playing tackle football, just being very active as a child, and just it's just having fun that way, and moving through grammar school and all. I was pretty. I was the smallest and the shortest of my family, and that's how I grew up. I'm not very tall, and a lot of my friends were pretty much taller than me. But the one thing was that I was very fast. I could run really fast, and I was athletic. And so that helped me, kind of hang with the cool kids, I guess, because I had the speed, I was athletic, and I could get along with people pretty well. You know, never really, had fights, many fights. I think I could probably name two or three fights I had growing up as a kid. You know, because I just got along with everybody. It's just how my personality is, and so made my way through grammar school, got into high school and started, joining some things. I immediately wanted to start to play in the band because my sister, who went to the same high school prior to me, played in the band, and so I was kind of following her. And as a matter of fact, since I was the youngest, and my sister had her own room, she would oftentimes be afraid to sleep in her own room, by herself. So, we had to go to bed early because of school. Parents made us go to bed, and so we can get up in time. But a lot of times I would wake up and I'd be in my sister's bed with her because I was so little. She would come and pick me up out of my bed while I was asleep and take her back there because she was afraid to sleep by herself. And a lot of times I would just wake up and be like, man, okay, this ain't where I went to sleep. But anyway, that built a close bond with me and my sister. And, that exists today as well. I've always looked to her for information and guidance, along with my parents, as I grew up, because she and I were the only ones that went off to college. And as I said, I followed her. She went to Simeon High School. I went to Simeon High School. She played in the band. I played in the band. She played a wind instrument, clarinet. I played the saxophone. And so I kind of followed her. But I had a great time in high school as well, playing in the band. Played not in play for the school sports, but during gym time and everything, very athletic. But like I said, I was a small guy, so I wasn't about to play football. Didn't want to get banged up, and then I was just too short to play basketball. But I loved both sports, and did very well in the band to the point where going off to college, I was able to get a scholarship, a music scholarship to help out with that. I went to a private school not too far from Chicago, about 2.5 hours, from Chicago, and had the scholarship all through college. Played in the band in college, concert, jazz bands. In high school, I was in the concert and the jazz band and the marching band in high school. Made it through. College was fun as well, man. Just enjoying the college life, man,
Mm-hmm.
and made a lot of friends. We didn't have. It was a private school, very small schools, like only 2,400 kids. We didn't have any known black sororities or fraternities. It was a predominantly white school, and our class when we went to that school, my freshman class was the largest. I don't know what it is now, if this still stands, but that time back in 1983 when I went to college, it was the largest black class to come into that school. And prior to me getting there, 3 or 4 years before I got there, there were other black students, and like I said, there were no black fraternities or sororities, so we started our own little organizations. We had
Mm-hmm.
the Black Culture. That was the Black Culture House. We had the Black Student Union, and then we had offshoots to that. We had a men's organization called the Majestic Gents, and then we had the ladies organization called the Ladies of Vital Essence or Love. They were our sister organization, but everybody were in the Black Student Union. And so that was like our fraternities and sororities.
Mm-hmm.
So made a bunch of friends in that. I enjoyed that. And college life was great. But let me back up a little bit. In my high school years, and this kind of provided maybe some direction as to what I'm doing now as far as financial services. There was a point in my life where my my parents decided I needed braces, and I just remember. I remember not only getting braces, but I went to the dentist a lot because I ate as a kid. I would eat a lot of candy and a lot of sweets, so I had cavities, and my teeth were just jacked up, and they were crooked, and they were cavities. And I think you know out of all the kids, I probably went to the dentist the most. But anyway, I enjoyed those times because my dad would come pick me up from school and drive me to the dentist. And I was always, as the youngest, I'd always ask a bunch of questions to not only my siblings, but to my parents as well. And to the point where, they would get angry because I asked so many questions. And then it's funny too, when I had my kids, my youngest son was like me. And he would ask me a bunch of questions, and my mom too. And that's so funny how that works. But anyway, so all through grammar school, like my seventh and eighth year of school, on into my freshman and sophomore, these were just times where I was, my dad was picking me up and taking me to the braces. Like I said, my teeth were jacked up. I had to have a device that kind of really helped to straighten my teeth. And then I had braces, and so I was always going to the dentist, and my dad was always coming like at least once a month, picking me up out of class to take me to the dentist. But on those drives to and from the dentist, man, we would just have conversations, man, and I would just talk to him about growing up, talk to him about you know life, talk to him about handling money. And he never finished. I think he dropped out of high school in like the 10th grade, growing up in Mississippi, and that's when he moved to up north to Chicago because he had to support his family. So he came to Chicago to find a job. But that kind of, I guess, probably directed me to where I am now, because he would always tell me. I mean, we would have these drives, and he would always say, probably almost all the time we drove, he would always say, manage your money, pay your bills, save money, pay your bills, save money, make sure you get a good job, pay your bills, save money. And that's all he knew. But I was young, I didn't know nothing. It sounded good to me, you know, find a good job, pay your bills and save some money so that you always be able to do things. And so, and we would have other conversations as well, about girls and stuff like that growing up as a young man. But I enjoyed those conversations, and then even other conversations as I got older, in the house and things like that. And I became, although I asked a lot of questions as a young guy, you know, um, I became even more inquisitive and asking even more because as I matured, just asking different questions, and it bloomed into talking about questions about religion. My dad, during the time, he started getting involved in, the Nation of Islam. And so, since we spent a lot of time in the car, he had a lot of influence on me. And so, he would talk to me about that because he was getting involved in it. And I was pretty much the only one that would listen. And so, we would have those conversations. And it, as I got older, I actually began to struggle. And we probably get into this a little bit later, but I began to struggle with what direction, because my mom, although she didn't go to church much, she was more influenced on the Christian side.
Hmm.
My older brother was very influenced by my grandmother, who used to live with us at one time when I was younger, and she became a evangelist and minister. And she had really a really good. My grandmother, they had my mom's mom had a good, really good influence on my impactful influence on my older brother, who became who's now a pastor. And so, and then my mom, who really wasn't a church goer in her younger years, but then she became more going to church as she got older. So my dad was doing the Farrakhan Islam thing, and my mom was, a Christian. But again, since I spent a lot of time with my dad, I would kind of sway more towards the Nation of Islam because, it just sounded more like it made sense to me at the time. And so, but as I got older, I would struggle with, what direction to go in. Islam, the Nation of Islam, you know, or become a Christian. And so I'm going to answer, talk a little bit more about that as we talk about your other segments that we kind of previewed before we started recording here. What eventually turned me, made me decide to go, to become a Christian. So that was it, man. And then I went off to college. I graduated from college, started working. I got married, and I've been married twice. So I got married. I was married 6 years, got divorced, had a daughter with her, and then I was single for another 6 years, and then that's when I met my beautiful beloved now.
That's awesome, man. That is awesome. So much of your story that you were sharing, I can't believe. I guess I can believe how much your upbringing in so many ways paralleled mine.
Hmm.
I mean, just even down to some of the smallest details. Of course, we shared at the top of the show about how we actually grew up a couple of blocks from each other. I mean, just your address, as odd as this is going to sound. You said you lived 9312, but I lived 9123.
Yeah.
Ada.
Yeah.
We still lived in an apartment. We lived in the three flat.
Hmm.
And we were on the second floor, and
Hmm.
and we only had two bedrooms, so I had to actually share a room with my mom for a number of years, and then my grandmother lived with us, and so she had the other room. But one of the things that you spoke about was just that whole family component, not only inside the house, but then just in the neighborhood, how that
Yeah.
was. And then, of course, you're reflecting on all the different things of being outside and playing and just the memories of the park. I could even envision it even right now, what that
Hmm.
looked like, and kids being out to, just enjoying outdoors. Something
Yeah.
that you and I understand you don't get to see that as much like we used to do it back then. We would fight to get up out the house.
Yep.
We didn't have to worry about us staying in the house. We wanted to go out, rain, sleet, snow. It didn't
Yep.
matter. Just to
Yeah.
be out. Playing, riding bikes, doing all of those kind of things. And then even when I think about your, you being, independent agent, entrepreneurial spirit, I know you can identify with this. Just thinking about just within a couple of blocks from where we lived, you think about back in the days on, if you and again, forgive my listeners who don't know about Chicago and specifically about the Brainerd neighborhood, but we even had a strip, if you remember, like on 89th and Loomis,
Hmm.
where you
Yep.
had all of these businesses,
Yep.
and majority of those businesses were black owned
Yep.
businesses,
Absolutely.
and it was pretty much like to have a neighborhood like that with a strip of businesses in today's times, you would pay premium dollar to live in a
Hmm.
neighborhood that had that.
Yep.
But it was even more special to live in a neighborhood and then to see people who look like you
Hmm.
own those different businesses. And again, at that time, it didn't click, the
Yep.
significance of
Exactly.
that. But when I
Hmm.
think about it years later, it's like, wow, that was pretty phenomenal. That was like,
Hmm.
kind of your own miniature, if you want to call it miniature Black Wall Street, if you would,
Yep.
back in the day.
Yep.
Those
Yep.
kind of neighborhoods were common in the black
Hmm.
community throughout, regardless of what side of the Chicago you lived on, South Side, West Side. You had different versions of those type of things. So,
Yeah.
again, you being exposed to that, you having the conversations with your dad about
Hmm.
manage your money and save and get all of those things. And this is why I like to have these moments. You begin to kind of piece that stuff together where it seemed like it
Hmm.
was just a conversation. It was just something that was there. Now you
Yeah.
fast forward to today, and you're applying those same principles, those same concepts. You're modeling that for yourself in today's
Yep.
times, and so that's a phenomenal thing. And just again, you just like I said, pretty laid back, chill kid. Same with me. I was the
Yep.
same way like that. Just I always say I was never popular enough to be in the cool kid crowd, but I wasn't nerdy enough to be in the nerd kid crowd. I was
Right.
sort
Right.
of somewhere in the middle.
Uh
Could
huh.
pretty much get along with just about anybody, but that was kind of the thing back then. I mean, and
Yep.
even if you did get into a fight, it wasn't nearly like we think about Chicago in particular. It
Hmm.
wasn't nearly like it is,
No.
back then in comparison to now. You got in a fight back in the day. You had your little squabble, and then 10 minutes later, you're playing again with the person
Right.
you just got into a fight
Yeah.
with. It was like it never
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
so
Yep.
yeah, all of those things, man, just really brought back some phenomenal, and great memories. And again, I
Hmm.
appreciate you sharing, just what that experience was like coming up. Just kind of give a snapshot of where your story began. So, Keith, obviously you go through those earlier years, and you eventually make your way into adulthood, and the experiences will continue to come, good, bad, or otherwise. But
Hmm.
every now and then, as you get older, if you live long enough, you're going to get hit at some point with a situation, a storm, a valley experience moment that kind of gut punches you in a way, in the
Yep.
sense that when you're in that moment, when you're staring in the face of that trial, that moment of adversity, you're thinking to yourself, how am I going to get out of this? This is something that's a little bit more weighty, a little bit more burdensome than the normal kind of nuances that I might encounter. I don't see a way out. I'm feeling stuck. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling like, literally hopeless, if you will, and helpless. So, with that said, tell us about a time when that's exactly how you felt, that you were in a situation like that. I mean, God, clearly you're here today to talk about it, so we can trust that God worked that thing out and
Hmm.
have you here today to even speak on it. But maybe back then you had your questions, you had your doubts about that. So, if you would, share with us a scenario where you had such a moment in time in life. And what was ultimately the turning point where you began to see some light at the end of the tunnel and coming out of that situation?
Yeah, man. So, like I was saying, man, I had a pretty, easy going life, man. Just making friends, enjoying outside life, being athletic, playing instruments, you know, enjoying that part of my life in high school and in college because, in the bands, we traveled to different places to perform, so that was fun, you know, and, and then, going through college and playing in the band and doing traveling, for that as well. Uh, and then, I got out of college and I married my high school sweetheart, and things were still going well, man. And the thing that kind of guess gut punched me because until then, life was great. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't where I wanted to be. Because like I said, I had those conversations with my dad, and even as I got older, going through college, I was like, I felt the entrepreneurial pool. Like I'm gonna be a businessman. I even actually one summer, my cousin and I, one of my favorite cousins, we started a little, you know, I don't know what you call it, landscaping, but we did kind of everything. We cut
Mm-hmm.
grass, we cleaned up people's basements, we cleaned up their yards, whatever they wanted us to do, we did, and so I just thought that that was the way to go, is to be my own business person. But went through college and everything, got out, got married right after college to my high school sweetheart. Things were going well, man, until gut punch, man. I got divorced. And that was a tough time in my life because I was like, this doesn't happen to me. Why is this happening to me? I've been a great guy. I've been, enjoying life. Things have been going well. And the really hard part was that it was right pretty much soon after my daughter was born.
Mm.
And I wasn't at the time a Christian. I was kind of, you know, still considered myself more influenced by the Nation of Islam stuff, although I wasn't going to any Nation of Islam, meetings or anything, gatherings. But and being, I probably was a little bit arrogant too in my life because again, I was having those conversations with my dad. I just thought I knew stuff based on what he told me, you know, and but man, that was a serious blow. I just felt like, my life was just, I felt really, really low. I was out of college. Uh, my daughter had been born, and here I am getting ready to get divorced. And, had to move back in with my parents and, had to see my daughter when I could, based on a couple of days that was agreed upon between me and my ex. And another thing that really hit me was because I always wanted to be married and have children. And I found myself even, like I said, I wasn't a Christian, but I believed in God, but I found myself just really having conversations when I was alone in my depressed state, having conversations that, like, God, I want to get married. I want to be married and I want children, but I'm getting divorced and I've had a kid. How am I gonna, this doesn't jive right. You know what I want. And I remember one time having a conversation, and I said, I said to God again, I wasn't a Christian, but I said, if you can help me, let me find the right wife. I'm going to make sure I do this the right way the second time. I'm not going to screw it up. And I want to have children too, God. I want to have, some more kids. Uh, and then, still struggled. It was like I said, I was divorced 6 years. It was 6 years before I found my current wife, my wife Cheryl. And but all through that 6 years, man, I was going through some low points, and doing some things that I'm not proud of. I won't talk about them now because it's not the space. But I was just going through some really low points in my life, and just hanging around in it. You know what I'm saying? And I got a little comfortable in it. You know what I mean? And then you know it's like God just kind of tugged me or tapped me and said, remember you wanted to find a new wife. You remember you wanted to be a businessman. Remember, these things you want to do. And that was probably after a couple years of doing wrong, and just hanging out doing the wrong stuff. I decided, okay, it's time to get it together. You know, and it's quick. It's funny how when you decide to move in the right direction, how God starts to put things in place. And it wasn't soon after that he I ran into one of my college friends who was doing a business, and that just caught my attention. I was like, man, you doing your own business? Because I always wanted to be a business guy.
Hmm.
And I was like, what are you doing, man? He's like, oh, hey, listen, let's book a time and get together, and let's talk. And so I said, yeah, man, right away. I just, whatever time you want to get together, let's do it. So, we picked a day and a time, and I grabbed one of my other college friends. I said, hey, man, you need to meet with me. You know, Carlton's got something going on. Let's go meet with him. And so sat down with him, and I was just ready. Whatever he was doing, I was going to do it. You know. And he told me about the business. I was like, I'm in. Let's go. And I even told my other partner, our other college mate. I was like, man, we doing this. He was like, we are. I was like, yeah, we doing this. And so we went into business with this guy, and I was in business, just trying to build that business. And you know, then God answered my second thing. He was That's when I ran into and met my wife in this business. And it's funny too, man, because I was still, kind of doing the, you know, more influenced, with the Nation of Islam stuff. Uh, but the people that I was in business with were all Christians. Most
Mm.
of them were Christians. And so, this kind of brought back that struggle that I was having between Islam and Christianity, you know, and and I was still struggling with it. But and then my wife was a Christian, and so this was another dilemma I was in. I was like, man, she's the one I want, but I think I want to be a Nation of Islam guy, Muslim, and she's a strong Christian. She wasn't budging, and then I wasn't budging. But I remember before I actually met her. This is man. This is probably going. If this doesn't if this doesn't build people's faith, the story I'm about to tell you right now, if this doesn't build faith and the power of prayer, I don't know what is. Because there was a point in time before I met Cheryl, and I'm in this business, right? That we're doing. That I really started. This is like a couple of years later after I met Carlton, my friend. I got in. I was like, I'm ready to settle down and get married. Again, or find the right woman. And I had made some friends and there's other friends in this business, and I just remember, man, just because I was trying to date, and find, date some other girls and stuff, and it just wasn't working out, and I was getting frustrated and mad. It's like, man, I'm trying, I want to, I'm ready to get back into a relationship, And so I had a conversation with one of my business partners at the time, and he was a Christian. And he said, here's what I advise you to do, man. He said, make a list, actually take a piece of paper and write on the piece of paper the type of woman you want to meet, and pray over that list. Now, he's a Christian. I'm not. But I believed in God. I believed in prayer, and those things. And I wanted this so bad. And, God had already brought me to this business, you know. Um, and I said, okay, man, I was naive enough to believe it. And I made a list. I mean, from how tall I want her to be, to her personality, to her support me in my entrepreneurial spirit and how I am, to having children, everything I wanted, a woman to be, and what she would have to agree to, and how we would get together and all this, and I prayed over that list, man. And lo and behold, God brought me to Cheryl. Now, Cheryl and I was in this business together, and we had known each other for 5 years. We saw each other at least twice, two to three times a week in this business. And this was the woman that he had for me. I knew her as a friend 5 years prior. And after I prayed over that list, now we would go to conventions and, business meetings and all of that. Never would sit together, me and Cheryl. But after I would pray over this list all the time, I found myself sitting next to her at a convention, and we struck up a conversation. Now we knew each other already, but it was more in like passing. Hey Cheryl, hey Keith, how's your business going? Oh, mine's going great. How's yours going? That type of thing. But we found ourselves sitting each other at a convention next to each other, and we struck up a conversation. And that whole weekend that we were at the after that first initial conversation in the first meeting, we would sit next to each other. So for the next 3 days, we would sit next to each other talking more. And then after that, exchange numbers. We started talking more and more and more and stuff like that. Then it came to a point where, like I said, she was a Christian and I was trying to do this Islam thing, that we decided, it wasn't going to work. This is after many conversations, phone call conversations at night, getting to know each other, all this kind of stuff. She wasn't going to budge from being a Christian. I wasn't going to budge from trying to do Islam. And we just, mutually decided, this ain't going to work, you know. And I was like, I was okay with it, because I had already tried dating some other girls and it didn't work. So at that point in my life, I was like, if it don't work, it don't work. Keep moving. And she was cool with it too. But we were in this business together, right? So we were going to see each other anyway. But I had, made a point that I wasn't going, call her anymore. I wasn't going to be on that level of, where we had gotten. It was just going to be back to, hey, what's up, Cheryl? Hey, what's up, Keith? That type of thing. But I found myself, still being around her, having deeper conversations and things like that. So it was like I was saying no, she was saying no, but God was saying, hey, this is the woman that you prayed about, and this is the woman I'm telling you you need to be with. And so we found ourselves going out on a date again. And I remember asking her, I don't know how many weeks or months this was later, we were on a date. I said, how did we end up back here? Because we both said it was over. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember her saying, I don't know. And I remember later that night when I was at home alone, I was like, God, is this the one? And he answered, this is the one. And so I went from that gut punch, from being divorced and just feeling super low and hanging, with the low scum and doing the things I wasn't supposed to be doing, to realizing that, leaning on God and asking him for help, praying to him. And then, long story short, I ended up getting saved
Hmm.
from my relationship with her, and that connection, and that, always, relationship with God, and being around those other Christian brothers. it influenced me to accept Christ. So my struggle of which way I should go was over.
Mm.
And I'm so glad I chose Christianity.
Wow. Wow. Um, Let me first start off by saying I appreciate your transparency and sharing that. What a powerful testimony that is. And I also like the fact that while divorce in itself is a very as we said, a gut punching moment. I've been down that path as well before, and but we don't oftentimes, even though I've talked about divorce on the podcast before with other guests, it's very rare that I get a chance to speak to men who are on that side of divorce and who actually talk about the emotional, the mental challenges that come with it from the male side, because a lot of times, and to nobody's fault, but a lot of times, when a divorce happens, there tends to be more focus on how the woman in the divorce has been impacted, but men go through that thing too. And it hits us pretty hard. And I
Yep.
can only imagine what that must have felt like, especially with you having, a recently born child, in the mix as well, and then for the child to be a girl,
Yeah.
the whole daddy's girl kind of concept right there, and even though you didn't go through, and I felt you when you talked about, I was in this season, after the divorce where I was kind of into some things, doing some things that I knew I shouldn't have been doing. As far as I was concerned, you didn't have to say it, because I instantly connected with it, because when you're struggling with the aftermath of the divorce,
Yep.
and we'll probably have a conversation about that one day offline, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel you what you're talking about. I knew instantly what you were talking about, even though you didn't say it,
Yeah.
because it's your way of kind of like you're just trying to figure this thing out. Like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Like, how am I here? And you kind of go through that season afterwards where in so many, in so many words, you don't care. It's kind of like you kind of go into a checkout mode, and it's you kind of are reckless
Yeah.
to a certain degree in a
Yep.
number of different spaces and places, and who you're hanging out with and the things that you're doing, and it's like,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
it's, it's your way of kind of acting out, because you're trying to toil with the hurt. You're trying to toil with the pain of the divorce. So I say all that to say to my listeners that in a divorce, both the husband and the wife involved both feel it.
Yep.
Don't get that confused. And I would even go as far as to say, even though it's probably not the popular answer, I would probably go as far as to say that men, in some cases, are take it harder in those situations than I think even women do in some instances, just because it is such a painful gut punch moment. And
Yeah.
but nevertheless, I'm thankful to know that God directed your steps into providing you a second opportunity, bringing somebody in your life that was the right fit, and of course, on top of that, you ultimately two coming together and being on the same page in terms of your spiritual walk. That's critical. Obviously, that's critical to the survival of the marriage, as the Bible teaches us about being equally yoked. And and I had a similar experience. Although I was already still Christian at the time that I got my divorce. I was new to being a Christian when I got my divorce. So it was kind of like, you
Yeah.
know, you kind of start second guessing, like, this is what I signed up for,
Right. Right.
for
Exactly.
this to be
Yeah.
my intro to it all. So I get where you were coming from when you talked about that, but then I was also thankful, as you were, to ultimately be navigated towards having, meeting that one, that life partner, and of course, my wife, and being able to make that connection, because I too, like yourself, I wanted to get married again. I wanted to,
Yeah.
even though I would have preferred under normal circumstances to be a one and done. It didn't work out like that, but it didn't
Yeah.
make me. It didn't make me throw marriage out of the
Right.
realm of something that I wanted. I still wanted that, and like you, I still wanted to be a dad someday. And all of that kind of stuff. So that's what it's just interesting with your story. Not only in the telling of your story, but me personally.
Yeah.
I'm so many parallels to some of the
Yeah.
things that you said. So we'll have an opportunity to talk about that in another setting. But so I appreciate you sharing that. So Keith, when you do find yourself dealing with challenging times, obviously you talked about some heavy stuff, but sometimes it's heavy, sometimes it's just, lifing type stuff. But I am curious to know, whenever you do find yourself facing moments of adversity and challenges, what is it that you personally like to do that kind of helps you to process through such moments in a healthy and productive way, kind of keeping your focus as you're dealing with whatever it is that you're dealing with?
Well, I I try to, my like I said, my personality, I'm more, laid back, and I'm not expressive. You've been through life on purpose at the church before, and
Hmm.
I think if I remember my letters correctly, I think I'm an S and a C. The people that are kind of like in the background, like more of an orderly type of life, but they don't make a lot of big splashes. They don't need a lot of attention. I'm that guy. You know, and so I won't share a lot right away, as to what's going on with me. I kind of, myself, I kind of think about it, and then I'll, of course, pray over it, and I'll just, just really pray and ask God to just kind of help me through this, give me the answers I need, you know, what can I do, I'll, at some point, after I've kind of processed it myself and prayed over it, share it with my wife, you know. But the main things that I do, Joe, is I just, I obviously, pray a lot, over it. And I just try to just stay in that space so that I don't, make any more mistakes or do anything wrong or, miss the opportunity of God trying to, show me the way out of it, to help me get through it. I feel, when I do face some challenges, of course, like everybody else, it's like, wow, another, another tribulation, another trial,
Hmm.
another thing, I've got to go through. And if you have kids, it's going to always be that way.
Yeah.
If you own stuff, a house, a car, or whatever, something's going to always come up, and then if you're trying to do anything positive, the devil is always at work, always trying to put a damper or to eliminate that, for you. So you have to stay, on your knees. You have to stay connected, to God. And so, when I do face challenges, I just, I just know that, I don't know how, but I just know that, God's going to bring us through it. I got to get through the tough part. It hurts like heck. I
Hmm.
don't want to go through it. I'll just mention this. We just had a really tough time. In the past couple of years, with my oldest son. I have three kids. I have an older daughter, a middle son, and a younger son. But the oldest son of the two, we were just going through some things with him, and it was just really tough, man. It was really tough, and my wife and I had to make some tough decisions, and didn't want to do it. It hurt like a son of a gun going through it, man. It really did. But I prayed a lot, for myself and my wife, for us together, and for him, for my son, and praise God, he brought him through it. He brought us through it. I can't say that we're completely through it all, because life is what it is, but we're on the right path. We're moving in the right direction. And so now that I know that it works, when anything else comes up, then I know that's where I need to go.
Love that. Love that approach, man. Appreciate you sharing that. And to our listeners, if you don't currently have a way of kind of processing things, you're not sure what's the best approach. I mean, obviously, a great starting point is praying. But I love that you spoke about just kind of resting in that moment and just letting God speak back to you. It's because that's sometimes the mistake that we make in prayer is that, for those of us who know to pray, sometimes we'll go in and pray, but then we don't take that moment of pause to hear what is it that God wants us to do. And so if we don't take the time to listen, then we're at risk of going out there and jumping the gun and going one way or another way that God wasn't getting ready to tell us to do that, but we didn't stick around long enough to listen. So I'm glad you pointed that out because it's such an important thing to keep in mind. I know we only got a few minutes left, so I want to be respectful of your time. So,
No, I got a little more time, so we're,
okay,
we're
great,
good. We're
great,
good.
great. So Keith, if you had the opportunity, if you had the opportunity to sit across from the younger Keith, to as you reflect back on all your experiences, life challenges, um, all of the things that have happened over the course of your life, good, bad, or otherwise, if you could speak to him and impart in him some words of wisdom, some things that you wish that he would have known early on that you think would have been helpful in him being able to navigate through life and the challenges and the storms that come along with it, or just take into consideration that there's going to be somebody right now that's tuning in, that's currently going through some stuff, and they don't know how to quite handle those moments of adversity. They don't know how to pivot their way through that in a healthy and a productive way. What would you say to younger Keith? What would you say to those individuals right now that are trying to figure out best practices, if you will, in navigating the storms and challenges of life?
I'll tell you, what I'd say to myself as a younger, and when you say younger, I'm thinking more like, early 20s, because before that, it's all fun.
Mm-hmm.
You ain't really don't have an interest in trying to figure yourself out.
Right,
You're
right.
just enjoying, you're enjoying high school, you're enjoying your college years. It's not until you hit junior and senior year in college that you're saying, okay, I'm about to, become an adult. Things are about to get serious. Let me start thinking about what I need to do. But I'll tell you, this is what I would say to younger Keith, and this is what I've said to my oldest son. Find a routine and structure in your life. Even as your young 20s, you still want to enjoy life. Okay, but I would say find a routine. Be more structured, because a lot of times with even as when I was a young person, I didn't really have you know a routine. I would just get up and do whatever came. You know what I'm saying? If my
Mm-hmm.
buddies called me and say, "Hey man, let's go to the gym. Let's go play some basketball." Okay, I'm there. But I would say have a routine where you get up. I like exercising, so exercise would be one of my things. You know, I would say include in your routine not only exercise but also reading. When I got started in that business, another one of my business partners, who was an avid reader, and I looked to as a mentor, and I just thought at the time this dude is just super smart. But he would tell me, Keith, you got to read, and I don't mind reading. I just wasn't a real, reader at the time. And he was always reading. He always had a book, something that he was reading, and he would just tell me, you got to read books. And at the time, I didn't really get it. I was just like, man, I'm still trying to have a little fun.
Right,
Still
right.
try. I don't have time to read. But now that I'm older, that's what I would tell young people. And one of those books would definitely be the Bible. When I started really sitting down and reading the Bible, although I don't consider myself any type of person that's gone to school, a theologian, or an expert on God's word. When I read the Bible, I know there's different books that you can have that you can use to help you to understand what God is saying. But and I will get there. I'll get those books. But right now, and this is just the way my mind works and the way I am. I just I read the Bible, and I just before I read it, I pray and ask God, you know, to grant me wisdom and understanding of what I'm about to read, so that I can draw closer to you. Give me understanding and knowledge and patience. You know, so that I can be patient with myself in learning your word, and then patient with others if I try to share it, that I don't try to force them into anything. So, and then I've always, I can say without a doubt, when I've read, even if I don't really quite understand what God is saying, He always shows me something in there about Himself and His Word, that I can get out of it. But I would say definitely have a routine where you are keeping yourself healthy through exercise, eating right, but definitely read.
Mm-hmm.
Read more, not only, other books, but and the books I'm talking about, Number one, the Bible. Number two, self-help books, self-development books, books to help you develop yourself. And because I consider myself an entrepreneur, business books. That's what I would say. And then nowadays we have YouTube, so you can find really good people who have good content. And I found one in a guy. But back then, as a younger Keith, we didn't have YouTube. But I would say find a mentor, someone who's a Christian, a believer that you can be mentored by.
Hmm.
You know, someone other than your parents. If that's your dad, then that's your dad. But definitely someone else who's got some experience and that can mentor you. That would be my advice to young Keith, and that's
I
what I've
love
said to
that.
my son. Yep.
I love that. I think that's very solid advice, like you said. I love the way you, because basically what you're speaking to is just sort of the whole self care component of it all. But you're speaking of it from the standpoint of not only the physical exercise of the body, but you're also talking about the exercising of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's a part of the self care component right there, and you're of course obviously incorporating the Bible, but there's also some other supporting materials that you want to be selective in what you're ingesting, because as we know in these days and times, in particular, whether it's in books or whether it's on media platforms or whatever, all information is not good information. So you want to ideally find people that are in alignment with God, and what He's wanting us to embrace, the wisdom, the routine, as you stated, the behavioral practices. And there's plenty of materials out there that you can tap into, like you said, and use those as opportunities to develop, to get to, and I like to look at development not just in general, facts and and data, but spiritual development.
Mm-hmm.
As I love the way that you spoke about, how you pray beforehand. God, I might be getting ready to go in to read something that I'm not gonna have much of a clue what it says, but give me something that I can walk away with. Give me something to chew on that I can take
Mm-hmm.
from this. And I think your prayer suits that, because the
Mm-hmm.
reality is that you don't have to be, to build that closeness, that intimacy, that relationship with God. You don't have to be as you said, a theologian. You don't have to be a Bible scholar. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
require that level.
Right.
God will break it down
Yeah.
and allow you to basically meet you where you are.
Mm-hmm.
That He has the ability to do that. That a person can that is more in tune with God's word. He can present it to them in that technical theological way.
Yep.
And then for somebody that's just you give it to me plain, give me the
Yeah.
Cliff Note version. He can break it
Right.
down to you like that, and
Yep.
both people can walk away with the same impact and
Mm-hmm.
be able to immediately apply it to their respective situation. So I love your approach, and I think that that's excellent advice for anybody that's tuning in and trying to figure out how to navigate that path accordingly. So thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Sir.
so Keith, man, this has been a phenomenal conversation, man. I have thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It has not disappointed in any way. I know I've been blessed. I know my listeners has been blessed. So I do appreciate you coming on and sharing as you have, so transparently, so openly as you've done. That is definitely needed, and I'm thankful that and grateful that we were able to make this opportunity happen. But as is the case, as is customary, I should say, on the Blessings in the Streets podcast, we do want to take an opportunity to celebrate you, to uplift you, to love on you. So if you got anything that's going on now or coming up, be it professionally and or personally, please share that with us. We want to know about it, celebrate it, find out how we can connect with it, be a part of it. Keep up with the things that you got going on, because there might be some stuff that we need to be following you on and reaching
Mm-hmm.
out to you beyond the broadcast, to say, hey, we need to tap into this brother, because he got some stuff that we need to grab hold to. So what can we look forward to that you got going on or coming up down the road?
Yeah, so appreciate that, man. And I've enjoyed the conversation as well, man. I didn't, hopefully I've helped some people. I don't consider myself a very interesting guy, but hopefully, things that I've said has encouraged some people and helped them, in their walk, their Christian walk, and help them maybe, to even decide, you know, should I become a believer, a Christian, and maybe whatever else I might have said that had helped them kind of move forward in life. But so, like I said, I'm born in '65. I'm learning this the whole era that we're in with social media and everything. I do have Facebook. I do have LinkedIn, which is probably the main two places that I hang out on. I do have I do listen to certain people on YouTube. And over the past probably 3 or 4 months, I decided I'm going to one of the new things I'm going to do is start posting YouTube videos where I'm talking more about you know you know financial stuff, and trying to support it as best I can with scripture from the Bible.
Hmm.
So my channel is going to be called Keith the Insurance Guy, and I'll tell you a quick story about that. Early on in my career of selling insurance, I would make a lot of phone calls to people, and even if I met them in person, my name again is Keith Squalls. All right, so I would tell people my name, Keith, but inevitably they would always forget it. So, they couldn't remember Keith, but they could remember Kevin or Ken. Okay. So they would always end up calling me either Kevin or Ken. And so, but then, with the last name Squalls, which is not a common name for black people, you know, I dare not tell them that because now I'm, squells, squirrels, squibbles, whatever. They couldn't even remember that either. So when I would make phone calls to people and I'd tell them, my name Keith Squalls or whatever, and then I'd call them back, if I had a next appointment with them or something, trying to follow up with them, I would say, this is Keith, Keith Squalls, and they'd be like, who is this? And I was like, Keith Squalls, But anyway, it'd take them a while to remember who I am.
Hmm.
Or then again, they think my name was Kevin, or Ken. So I was like, I was like, man, let me make this easy for people. My last name is hard enough to pronounce for some people, let alone to remember. I'm gonna make it real easy. Since I'm selling insurance, I'd say, hello, this is Keith, the insurance guy, and then they go, oh yeah, yeah, I talked to you So I became Keith, the insurance guy. So that's what my challenge is going to be. So that's what's new coming out. I'm going to start posting videos. My goal is to do one a week. We'll see how that goes. Talking about financial and business stuff. But like I said, they can find me on Facebook or LinkedIn. It's just Keith Squalls. And I plan to do more things in that area in terms of social media. But other things I'm doing is just like what I'm doing with it, with you guys, with the Rhythm and Soulmates, is I'm trying to get myself out there more, doing financial empowerment presentations, webinars like online like this, or face-to-face in-person seminars. So I'll be getting out there more. Hopefully, people, I'll probably let you know at church and say, hey, man, if you're on your show, just mention to people I've got my channel up now. They can look me up. But that's about it. That's about the newest things. I do plan to. Let me say this other thing. This other new. I do plan to write a book. So I'm going to write a book, and put that out there. So I'll be letting you know when that's done too. So
Well,
hopefully within the next 6 months
okay.
I'll have that out.
Well, that is awesome, man, and I love what you got coming up for us. Again, to my listeners, if you got some financial management needs, some insurance needs, reach out to Keith, the insurance guy, and he'll be he'll be more than happy to help you. So he's giving you his contact information. Definitely follow up with him, and we'll definitely have to look at bringing you back on, possibly to connect in with some of the stuff that you're doing. Maybe we can, especially make. I think it's really definitely a good idea to with your particular approach is to not just give people the factual, the data information about insurance and financial management alone, but also making that connection. How does God see these
Hmm.
areas? I think because I think when you add that element to it, and you bring awareness to people that the two go together, I
Hmm.
think it kind of helps people understand and embrace the significance and the importance of it. Identifying what matters, what doesn't.
Yep.
Thinking about our money, thinking about our all of our financial needs, if you will, or inner workings, the way that God wants us to see money, the way that God wants us to handle things, whether it's savings, investments, things of that nature. So that's definitely something that you and I will talk about and see if we can bring you back on, and we may have a special edition show that just kind of focuses on that. But of course, bridging those two things together. So I think that would be an awesome thing that people would love to hear and need to hear, including myself.
Yeah.
So that's definitely some good stuff, man. But
Real quick,
yeah,
am I
go ahead.
allowed to leave my phone number?
You absolutely are. Yes.
Okay, yeah. So probably the best way to reach me would be on my cell number, and that's 773. Still got my Chicago area code number. 773-230-3266.
All right, all right. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We know how to contact him on social media. He gave you his phone number. You know what he does. So tap in. I'm sure that there's something that he's got going on that you are going to need some type of assistance or help with. This is an upstanding brother who's about his business. He's a man of God. As not only did we state at the top of the show, but you can clearly see throughout our conversation here. So you're dealing with somebody that's going to be on the up and up. That's going to, keep it 100 with you and let you know exactly the things that you need to do and how to follow through accordingly. And whatever he doesn't know, I'm sure he has contacts of people that he can refer you to that can help you otherwise. So I definitely encourage you to tap into him and allow him to be a blessing to you in whatever way that he can be. And so, for my listeners, if you've enjoyed our broadcast today, please do subscribe, share, like, comment, because this is what the Blessings in the Streets podcast is all about. We want to inspire, we want to encourage, we want to uplift. As you can see, being transparent, being raw, and sharing our stories, our personal journeys. Doing so because we understand that everybody goes through something. We all face adversities of some kind. And our hope is that in sharing our various stories, that there's something in there, that there's a gem, there's a nugget that you can draw from, that you can apply to your situation that's going to help you better navigate those circumstances, those storms, those valley experiences. But the one key thing, if you don't walk away from anything else, understand that a critical step in that process is making sure that you involve God in it, that relationship with God matters so
Absolutely.
much. And I'm here to
Absolutely.
tell you, if you don't have a relationship with God, today is a mighty fine day to make that
Yes,
choice.
sir. Yes, sir.
It'll not only is it a mighty fine day to make the choice, but it'll be the best decision that you've ever made. He wants nothing but the best for you. He loves you unconditionally. He wants that intimacy. He wants to be there for you to support, to encourage, to uplift in whatever way he can. And when you begin to lean on him, rely upon him, allowing him to guide your steps, the blessings are in abundance, not only for you directly, but it also equips you to be able to be a blessing to so many other people. So keep that in mind as you are dealing with your challenges and adversities and knowing that you don't have to carry that weight and that burden all alone. And so remember, here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and I thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, remember, you keep fighting that good fight. Continue to lean on God, lean on his understanding, his direction, his comforting, his protection, his provisions. There's nothing too big that you can give him that he can't handle. So take advantage of that and know that his way is the perfect way, his perfect timing. Everything about what he does in those situations is absolutely perfect. You don't have to question it. Just be willing and open to receive it and just watch him perform just a multitude of blessings and miracles and things that go beyond words in your life. And again, I promise you, it'll be the best decision that you'll ever make, and it'll make life go that much more smoother for you, even in the midst of those challenging and adverse times. So until next time, you take care of yourselves. I look forward to seeing you again. And until we do so, have a great rest of your evening.
All right. Take care.
All right.